Welcome to the fourth video of part one of building your low content book empire. In this video, we are going to circle back to low content books and dive a little bit deeper into ideas for different types of low content books. So I've got a pretty big slide here with lots of words on it, so I'm going to try not to talk for too long, but as you can see, there's lots of ideas here. So let's start at the top with journals with prompts. So this is kind of the next step up in content from the no content journals that we discussed in the previous video, where you might just have room with lines and dates for people to write. And there's really nothing about it that really themes it other than maybe a cover. So with a journal with prompts, there's going to be a little bit more content in there. So you might provide some information about something, or you may ask some questions, which is basically what a prompt is, like describe a time when you felt anxious, something like that. And usually a theme journal or a prompt journal will take users on a journey. So think about something that could take a person from point A to point B. And so even, a gratitude journal that includes prompts would be taking people on a journey, because you're trying to build a practice of gratitude through the daily use of that journal. So let's go and take a look at some examples of that. And I think one good place to look, it would be self-improvement, or also the keyword personal development, and look for ideas there that might be something a person might need to journal about. So we've got some results here. I'm not going to click into all of them. You can run your own search of self-improvement ideas. But just looking at the ones that come up here. So create a meal plan. Could we make a journal out of that? Absolutely. Stop eating fried food. That might be a little bit too specific for a journal all to itself, but it could be part of a healthier eating journey. Don't go more than 3 days without exercise. So you could journal about fitness goals. Eat minimal dairy. I think, again, that's too specific for a journal. Cut one of the following: pop, coffee, alcohol. Again, very specific. Get enough good sleep. A sleep journal would be another thing that you could write about. So there's also plenty of little kind of like Pinterest or social media lists of self-improvement. So go ahead and click on the image tab when you do your search and look at some of these tips. You can also go to Pinterest to look at that. And again, you'll find related searches kind of buried in between here. And the nice thing I like about the image search on Google is it will also, similar to Pinterest, give you these little sub keywords that you can kind of niche things down a little bit further. So use those to find ideas for a prompt type of a journal. So the next category we have is logbooks and trackers. So this would be also a kind of a journey sort of thing. It could be a learning journal or a learning tracker, maybe a homeschool child who needs to track what they're working on and how many hours or minutes they spent doing that per week. So that would be a type of tracker. You can also have recipe books that would be more like a logbook. For example, if you wanted to do your grandmother's recipes and write out all the family recipes in a book, that might be a kind of logbook that would have very little content in it. And you can also theme those recipe books, and I'm talking about blank books where people write their own recipes. You can theme those by types of cuisines, different types of diet like paleo or whole foods, different dietary needs like a gluten-free recipe book, easy recipes, gourmet recipes, baking, beverages. Maybe, these are my Christmas recipes that my family makes every year. So by theming them to something very specific, then people can write the recipes of a very specific thing. Beverages too, I think an idea would be, there's an interest in kind of gourmet cocktails in recent years. So if you wanted to be like a home mixologist, you might want to write down the recipes that worked out for you and your own concoction. So that would be an idea too. Also hobbies or sports, especially when someone's new to something like a hobby. When you're learning something, you may want to track your the things that you learned, your successes and your failures, and what you learned from them and how you grow, or also any projects that you're working on. Also, if you're into sports, or if you have a child that's doing sports, that you may want to track stats for them. And, when I say a child doing sports, I'm thinking like maybe someone who's playing high school baseball that's on track to maybe get recruited for college or something. I don't think that I would advocate for kids having so much pressure that their parents are tracking all their stats in Little League, but some parents do. Anyways, so you could go back to the list of hobbies that we saw on Wikipedia. You can also look for a list of sports. Bowling would be a sport that I would think somebody would want to track their scores over time if you're in a bowling league. Golf would be the same thing. So maybe think about individual types of sports where you have your own scores that you might want to track as well. So let's see what examples I had for that. I just brought up the list of hobbies again. So here was our list of hobbies in Wikipedia that we looked at. Here's some other blog posts on different types of hobbies. And then also it's actually giving you kind of this guided search as well across the top, similar to what we see with the images. So you can get some ideas that way as well. So that would be logbooks and trackers. Planners, I think we're all familiar with what a planner is. It's basically a book form of a calendar. It can have monthly layouts, weekly layouts, daily, or some combination of those. So you might have, for example, a week at a glance and then pages for the individual days. You might have a month at a glance and then just weekly spreads where you can see your whole week on one page and not include the daily. So there's different ways you can play with that. With planners, I think for a general planner, I would look at the same sort of themes that we talked about with notebooks. So think about people's passions. Or also think about some of these things like the logbooks, trackers, and journals where people are going on a journey. So for example, if someone was, let's say, quitting smoking, it might be a little weird to have a planner for people quitting smoking, but if you can incorporate some of those journeys into your planner so that they can track, maybe diet or exercise would be a better example. So if you can have a planner that also has a place where people can log their water intake, how much they exercised, or what their calorie count for the day was, then you can create a theme that way. You can also theme planners that aren't necessarily calendars so much as a planner for a purpose. So what I mean by that is a planner for a blogger. So a blogger might need to plan out their content for the month or for the year. They may need to decide what days they're going to work on promoting their content on social media. They may need to create products for their blogs or work on their emails. So, they don't necessarily need to have, on Monday I'm going to do this, on Tuesday. It may be a broader planner where they're coming up with a business plan for their blog. Moms might have different needs for a planner. It might be more calendar based, but there may be different categories specific to mom that you can include. Homeschool as well. They might need a place to either put the schedule for homeschool or track the hours that they are doing homeschool for. So now let's go to puzzle books. There's a lot of different types of puzzle books that you can do. So it can be activity books, which are generally geared towards kids and have multiple variety of puzzles, sometimes even including some coloring activities. So there's all sorts of different activities in it. You can also do books that are themed by the type of puzzle. And then we've got word puzzles. And so you will need to find themed word lists for that, and that is easily done on the internet. You can just say word list. You could go by grade for second grade, and you would get the sight words for second grade people. And here's a free printable list, so you can get lots of different spelling words, and you could create a puzzle book based on that. Also look at the site Teacher Pay Teachers, because these are printables created by teachers, so teachers are going to know best what needs to be taught, so that can be a great source of inspiration. Obviously, again, don't copy what somebody else is doing. Don't violate their copyright and steal their hard work. You wouldn't like it if somebody did that to you, so just use it for some ideas and some inspiration. Number puzzles, there's dozens of types. Logic puzzles, like riddles. This is something good to look into the public domain for, because a lot of the old-fashioned puzzles, like say in the 1800s, are mostly these kind of riddle they give you, it's almost like a story problem that you have to figure out. So I wouldn't necessarily just republish them, because a lot of them are a little bit outdated or antiquated in the language and or the situations, but you could take the same general logic of the puzzle, the same general mystery, as you will. If it's a mystery to solve, you can take the same basic mystery and just change the characters to something more updated, change the situation to something more updated. Mazes, there's software to create mazes in different shapes, different styles, sometimes in the shape of an object like an animal. And then there's pen and paper games that would be like tic-tac-toe or SOS, or the, I think it's called Connect the Dots, where you have to create little squares out of dots with your competitor. Also think about road trip games, or, on the airplane kind of themed books, where you might have activities that are related to travel. Holiday themed puzzles or activity books, so Christmas or Easter would be two big holidays, maybe Halloween, where you've got themed puzzles based on that holiday. So I'm going to go back to Google, and we are going to, I would look at people that are publishing puzzles. So this is Penny Press, Dell Magazine. So I believe that's from the big Dell publishing company, if I'm not mistaken. So you can kind of just expand on some of these and see what kinds of books that they are publishing. So they've got crosswords, they've got coloring books. Let's see. Internet is being very slow today. So Sudoku, logic and math, word seek or search, and variety puzzles. Let's see what's under there. So it's not really giving us too much there, but take a look through some of the big publishers, and see what kind of puzzles that they are publishing. And that will give you some ideas that are just kind of beyond the standard crossword puzzle, word search, mazes, etc. Sudoku. I mean, those have been done quite a bit. But the nice thing about puzzles, and then also coloring books and planners, is all of these things are replenishable. Once you fill them out, you need another one. So that can be something to consider. So same thing with coloring books. Look at the big publishers and see what types of themes of books that they are publishing. So you might need to go to a bookstore if you can't think of a publishing company off the top of your head. You might go to a bookstore and just kind of browse, and usually the books are fairly branded. So like if we go back to this, I mean, these all kind of look the same. So if you saw multiple books on a shelf that all sort of look like this, you'd probably guess that they are from the same company, aside from the logo up in the corner. So look for publishing companies and then just see what kinds of things they are publishing, both in terms of the types of puzzles, the types of coloring books, as well as the themes that they are using, dinosaurs, princesses, etc. So coloring books can be for adult or for children. The adult ones tend to be more complicated. So Zentangle is trademarked, but you can do Zentangle inspired artwork. You can do mandalas, you can do different patterns. You can turn photos into line art or grayscale. So, you don't have to do what everybody else is doing. I know when you use software to convert a photo, it doesn't look that great, but if you can maybe do like a grayscale version and make it very light and have people color right over an artwork or a photo, obviously something from the public domain or something that you have rights to use, then you can maybe do something a little different. So coffee table books. So these can be in niches. They're usually photo-based or heavily photo-based. I think I mentioned in the very first video, castles of England or, castles of Ireland. You can do bridges of New England. Again, you need to make sure you have the rights to use these photos because some buildings are, I don't know if I'd call it copyrighted, but basically you can't just publish images for commercial use of other people's property, even if it is public property sometimes. So you need to make sure you have permission. That goes in the US with national parks as well. You can't publish pictures, even if you've taken them yourself, of things within national parks unless you have permission. But they can also be about passions or hobbies or animals. So, breeds of dogs, breeds of cats. Also think coffee table books, maybe even a little bit more quirky or whimsical. So, for example, there's been books about cat poetry. So that could be like a coffee table type of book as well. And another key word that you can use for this is gift books. And then finally, let's look at kids' books for young children. So fiction, we talked about in the first video, stories have pretty few words the younger you go, but also the younger you go, the more you need illustrations. So, just kind of thinking of what my own kids have read over the years, I would say somewhere around second to third grade, you can start doing stories that are a little bit longer but need fewer illustrations. There might just be like a little doodle of a character every now and again, maybe to start each chapter. But generally speaking, kids are starting to read those kind of very simple novels at around the second to third grade stage. So younger than that, you're going to probably need to have more illustrations. So that's kind of the trade-off. You don't have to write as many words for young children, but you do need illustrations. You can also look at nonfiction. So an example would be a picture dictionary. So let's take a look at some of those. So I did a search for picture dictionary, and we can see we've got some keywords up here. So if we were to go to images, we get some shopping results, so we can see what kind of picture dictionaries are out there already. There's lots of general picture dictionaries. So, one thing you might want to do is theme it. I think another good way to do it would be to, here we have the Japanese one. If you know another language, that might be a way to differentiate yourself, is to make a picture dictionary showing the objects in a different language. And you could even do that for older children or adults. I mean, that might be a way that someone who's traveling might want to take a picture dictionary with all the common things you might need to ask for on a trip in your dictionary. And you can also, even for the kindergartners and the first grade, do some picture dictionaries using themed word lists, like for example from Teachers Pay Teachers, or just searching for, as we did just a few minutes ago, first grade word list, etc. Okay, so that is looking for different kids nonfiction ideas. And, I'm not going to go too much into nonfiction book ideas because that can literally be about anything. The only thing I would recommend, again, is go to both Teachers Pay Teachers and or homeschooling blogs and look at the topics that different grade levels are having to study, or look at the Common Core standards. Also, a homeschool book that gives you ideas for curriculum by grade would be great. You can also go to homeschool sites that have, like, websites, e-commerce sites that sell books that are complete curriculum for an entire year, and so you can look and see what topics they are covering as well. And so there's just so many ways to find nonfiction book ideas for both kids and adults. And I realized I had a couple tabs open here that I skipped over before, so let's just quickly go back through those. So I pulled up this blog post, and I just searched for planner ideas, and this was one of the top results. So 25 planner theme ideas. It scrolls pretty slow because there's a lot of ads on it, but travel vacation planners, financial or budget planners, special events, so that might be like weddings, birthdays, cards or special gifts, meal planners, school planners, productivity planners, blog planners, writing your book planner, cleaning and home maintenance, home decorating, garden, health and wellness goals, hobbies, inspiration and quotes, relationships, spiritual, gratitude, reading books, bucket lists, boredom busters, community and neighborhood planning, and estate planning. So that is a whole bunch of ideas right there. So search for blog posts about ideas for planners, about ideas for self-improvement, personal development, and see what they're talking about. And so then finally too, if you have the extension that I mentioned before, the Amazon suggestion expander, you can just, again, go to Amazon and type in journal or planner or whatever type of book you're going to do, and just find a whole list of ideas of keywords for that. Okay, so a little over 20 minutes there, but that was a lot to cover in still a relatively short period of time. So in the next video, we're going to do the same thing with medium content books, and then we'll be done with the ideas phase. I think by that time, your head will be swimming with ideas. A lot of people have trouble coming up with ideas. That's never been my problem. My problem is too many ideas. So I hope I'm not overwhelming you with that, but I hope also that I'm giving you lots of things to think about, and you can see that there are opportunities beyond what everybody else is doing. All right, thanks for watching.